Welcome to this episode of the Dropout Multi-Millionaire Podcast, where we talk about tactical business strategy, building high-performance sales teams, and growing your business. If you're ready to break free from the status quo and join the ranks of the mavericks, the rebels, and the renegades who refuse to conform and instead build multi-million-dollar businesses, then buckle up, because here we go. And we are back. How's everybody doing out there in podcast land today? Welcome to today's show. And let's jump right in. I wrote an article 4 or 5 months ago. It was published in Forbes magazine, and it was called The 5 Keys to Success in Business. And coincidentally, these are also what I call the same 5 keys to failure. Now, Forbes, in their infinite wisdom, decided to change my title before it was published. And today it's called Why Do So Many Business Startups Fail? And Ways to Set Yourself Up for Success. Personally, I like my title better, but hey, who's going to argue with Forbes magazine? They have a little more experience in this than I do. Anyway, in that article, I talked about business startups and the fact that the U.S. Census Bureau tells us that 450,000 new businesses start every month. Not every year, that's every month. That means 5.4 million new businesses start every year in America. They also state that 50% of those will fail in less than 5 years, and 70% will never see year 10. That is a huge failure rate. By the way, I also own a small chain of restaurants. The restaurant failure rate is twice that speed. I think it's 50% in the first year. Business failures are staggering. So the question is, why are all these businesses failing? And as you know, I do coaching and consulting for businesses all the way up to Fortune 500 companies, and what I have found is that most businesses do not fail for what we call technical or mechanical reasons. Most fail because the owner just doesn't know how to run a business. And to use an example in my book, I talk about Joe the plumber. And by the way, that's the Dropout Multi-Millionaire book. That was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And Joe the plumber, in my example, we have this guy named Joe, right? Joe works for a plumbing company. And Joe's making $50 an hour working for the plumbing company. The plumbing company bills Joe out at $150 an hour. And Joe does this for years. But one day, Joe wakes up and he says, why am I only getting $50 an hour when they're charging $150 an hour for my time? I am going to quit my job and I'm going to start my own business. And so Joe quits and he starts, essentially, Joe's Plumbing. Now here's what we know. We know that if Joe's Plumbing ends up failing, because it follows the statistics that the U.S. Census tells us, it will not fail because Joe doesn't know how to be a plumber. Joe is clearly a good plumber. Joe's Plumbing will fail because Joe doesn't know how to run a business. And that is why most businesses fail. It's not for the technical, it's not for the mechanical, it's not because they don't know what they're doing in whatever it is they're selling. It's simply because they don't know how to run a business. So with that in mind, I came up with what I call the 5 keys to success in business, right? Things that Joe needs to know or Joe needs to learn if he intends to succeed long term. So if you are first starting out, here's what you need to know. You need to know that you have no idea what you're doing. That's number 1. And I'm not talking again about the technical side. Joe knows how to plumb. If you're a chef, you know how to be a chef. You know how to cook. That's not what we're talking about here. What I'm talking about is you need to understand the business side. Things like paperwork, things like banking, estimated payments on your taxes, matching taxes. How about marketing and sales? You understand labor costs as it relates to revenue. How about customer relations and 100 other things that can trip you up? This is what we call the business side of business. And you need to understand how all that works if you're going to succeed. Because if you don't, you better find someone else to bring in as either a partner or an employee that does know those things before you have created such a mess in your business that something or anything can eventually take you down. So rule number 1, understand what you don't know and get some help. A mentor or a coach, or hire a professional manager, whatever you want to do, but get some help. Number 2, if you are starting out, or if you are already in business and you are not growing like you want, or you're not as profitable as you want, Here's a little secret. You, my friend, are probably the problem. It's probably not your business. It's probably you. You are probably not making the right decisions about how to grow your business. And here is the reason why. And I'm going to be redundant here, but the reason is because you don't know how. Once again, if you've never built or scaled a business successfully, you just don't know how. Unless you have experience in growing a business, unless you have failed enough to learn, your personal filter, which is in your subconscious making decisions day in and day out without you even realizing it, your personal filter is just guessing on what to do. Now, I have another episode I did called The Personal Filter. So I'm not going to go into the details, but if you're interested, you can go back and find that episode and learn more about what that personal filter is. The quick and dirty here, you don't know how to succeed because you've never done it. You don't know the correct decision-making process because you've never done it, and most of what you're doing is just a guess. Business is both an art and a science. The science is the actual work. The rest is an art form. So how do you fix this? Okay, Brian, you've told me I don't know what I'm doing. How do I fix it? Well, same answer I gave you a few minutes ago. You need to bring in a mentor or a coach to help you learn how to make the right decisions, or just to tell you what to do so that you do make the right decisions. You need to find somebody who is 10 to 20 steps ahead of you and get their help. You need to borrow their success filter until yours is up to speed. We talk about borrowing someone else's filter in the other episode. Rule number 2, hire a mentor or a coach. Yes, I know it's redundant, but it is that important. Business lesson number 3, and this is a big one. You need to figure out who you are in your business, but even more importantly, you need to figure out who you're not, okay? Now, if you're self-employed and it's just you and the company, then you're everybody, and you're good for now. But if you really want to build something big, if you want to scale, if you want to build intrinsic value, if you want something that you can eventually sell, you can't do it alone. And chances are you may not be acting in the correct role in your company. Too many people think they start a business, I'm the entrepreneur, I'm the CEO. Just because you have started a business does not make you a CEO, by the way. A CEO is a managerial tasked job, okay? I did another episode, again, called The 4 Personalities. You should go back and listen to that one so you fully understand what I'm talking about. Basically, your business should have 4 personalities. It should have an entrepreneur, it should have a manager, it should have a salesperson, and it should have a specialist. That's the person who does the actual work. Now, as an example, I find that most people who start businesses are specialists. They're like Joe the plumber. Joe was a specialist. He was a plumber, but he started a business, but Joe was still the plumber. Joe was not the CEO. He's not the manager, probably not the salesperson. Joe needs to do what Joe is good at and bring other people in to backfill where he is not. The challenge is, again, most people that start businesses are not CEOs and they are not entrepreneurs. Salespeople, as an example, are terrible managers. Entrepreneurs are great salespeople. Technicians are terrible CEOs, okay? You can't be everything. Figure out who you are, figure out who you're not, stick with that, and then backfill. That person can either be a partner or it can be an employee. But either way, you need to bring them in or you will not grow. You will not build value. You will not build something that somebody else is going to want to come in and buy at some point someday. So number 3, check your ego. Get really honest with yourself. Find out who you are and who you're not, and then bring in the talent you need to grow. Number 4, oh my gosh, this is huge. You need to know your numbers. You would be shocked at how many people own companies. And I'm talking 0 to 50, 60, 70 million in revenue who don't understand how to analyze a profit and loss statement. They don't know their numbers. I've said this in so many podcasts, and I'm going to say it here again. You need to track your numbers, and you need to understand what your P&L is telling you. Weekly, at the very least monthly. You need to understand every cost, every revenue dollar, every percentage on every line in your P&L. In fact, I did another podcast, once again, called Your Magic Crystal Ball. You need to go back and listen to that one. Your P&L is a crystal ball. It will allow you to time travel into the future of your business and tell you how your business is going to do. So many businesses fail because they have no idea what's going on. In fact, one of the things I hear from entrepreneurs all the time is, well, I'm not good with the numbers. Okay. Well, you have two choices. Either get good with the numbers or find somebody who is good with the numbers and bring them into your organization. Because if you don't, you're probably going to fail. And I love this story. I had a guy come to me. I own a little chain of restaurants, and he had been in my restaurants, found out who I was, and he came to me and he said, "Hey man, can I have 10 minutes of your time?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll meet you next week. But before we meet," he told me he had a restaurant and wanted to talk to me about building restaurants. I said, "Before we meet, I need you to read my book." And he said, "Okay, no problem." Well, the next week came around and I came out to sit down with this guy at one of my restaurants up in Sugar Hill, Georgia. And we sat down. I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Well, I almost didn't come today." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, because I read your book and I know the first question you're going to ask me." I said, "Okay, what question is that?" He said, "You're going to ask me for my numbers." I said, "You are exactly right. Because until we know what you have today, until we know how it's been performing historically, there's absolutely nothing I can say to you and no way I can help you unless we know what's going on. And your numbers tell the story." I said, "Are you telling me you don't have P&Ls on your business?" And he said, "No." I said, "How are you operating?" I said, "Are you making money?" And he said, "I don't know." I said, "Okay, I don't understand what that means. You don't know if you're making money." I said, "Did you pay your taxes last year?" He said, "I filed a tax return." I said, "Did you pay any taxes?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, so you're probably losing money." I said, "How much money did you take out of the business personally last month?" And he said, "Nothing." I said, "Well, how are you paying your bills? Your business has been around for two years and you're not taking any money out. How are you paying your bills?" He said, "Well, my wife has a good job." I said, "Okay, let me get this straight. You called me and said that you have the best burrito shop in the state of Georgia and you want to build it into the next Chipotle. And then you sit down with me and you tell me that you don't even have a P&L since the day you started, but you want to go and ask me to help you raise money." Now, we are 5 minutes into this conversation. And I said, "I got to tell you, this, and not trying to be mean, but this is a waste of time." I said, "You go do your P&Ls for the past 2 years. And when you have them done, you call me and then we'll sit down and we can have a discussion on how to help you." And he said, "Okay." And he left. That was a year ago. I've never heard from him since. And that business has since gone. All right. You can't be in business for 2 years and not know what your numbers are. You can't be in business for a year, 6 months. You shouldn't be in business for 30 days if you don't know what your numbers are. Because if you don't, you are just guessing at everything you do. You have no idea what's going on and you are probably going to fail. Rule number 4, track your numbers like a maniac. And if you're not good with numbers, you better learn how to be good with numbers or hire somebody who is. Get a mentor, get a coach, find somebody that can help you before it's too late. Okay, number 5, and I'm going to use another story here. Number 5 goes back to you need to hire a coach or a mentor to help you. You need to bring somebody into your business and in your world who have been there and done that, who can help you make decisions because of their experience, not because of your guesswork. Okay? The problem we have as entrepreneurs sometimes is our ego gets so big that we think that either A, we have to know everything, or B, we already know everything. And everything that we think, it's got to be right because I thought it. And that just unfortunately isn't the case. And I'll give you a quick example. I wrote my last book. It's called No, Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. And I remember I took it to the publisher after it was done and I sketched out a cover for the book and sent it to her. And she sent it back. She said, "This cover isn't going to work." And I said, "Yeah, it is. I mean, I've already got 2 best-selling books. This is the cover I want to go with." And she said, "Brian, this cover is not good. It's not any good. It sucks." And we proceeded to argue for about 2 minutes about why I wanted to use my cover and her telling me that it wasn't going to work. And suddenly it dawned on me, as a guy who sits here and preaches to people day after day that you need to bring in somebody that knows more about this than you do. It suddenly dawned on me that this woman had probably published 100 books, 500 books, and I'd published 2. And I said, "You know what? You're right. I apologize. You know more about this than I do." And we went with her cover. And by the way, it was awesome. And the book hit number 3 on the Wall Street Journal. Okay. I don't care how good you are or how smart you think you are. If somebody else is in the room that is better at whatever it is you're trying to do, you need to listen to them. So rule number 5, hire a coach. It can be a relational coach, a technical coach, or a tactical coach. And those are 3 different things, by the way. But bring in someone to help you see the bigger picture. So that's it for today. Everything I talk about is in my books, The Dropout Multimillionaire and No, The Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. You can find all my information on my website, which is brianwillmedia.com. The book's social media, podcasts, guest appearances. There is also an intro masterclass to sales and negotiation based on my last book. This is a course that I've taught for 20 years. In fact, I've taught probably over 1,000 people this course. It has done billions of dollars in sales in products and services. And you can get the intro to that class for free. If you go to my website, brianwillmedia.com, go to the coaching tab, go down to the training class tabs, click on training class, go to sales and negotiation tab, click on that. There is a coupon code. If you will enter the word sales, SALES, that will get you the class for free. You can have it, take the class, come back, drop me a message, let me know what you think. Hopefully it'll help. All right? So have a great day. And as I always end my podcasts, here's what you need to remember. People say all the time, well, I want to do that, or I can't believe you've had this much success, or I'd like to be able to do that. Listen, you got to be in the game to win the game. So go get in the game. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you would like to get more information on either one of my books or my one-on-one coaching programs, you can find me at brianwillmedia.com or thedropoutmm.com.